So I want to get right into the title, and I want to give you the title of this one. I'm going to give it to you now. The title of this one is, This Is Me, the Power of My Testimony. And I want to go ahead and start based off of what I've said already. There is a power in testimony. There is a power in testimonies that I share. There is a power in testimonies that you share. It's your story. But there's also incredible power that you have from that. So I looked up the word testimony, as you know I tend to like to do. And the testimony is a noun, and it says that it's a public recounting of a religious conversion or an experience. It's a public recounting of a religious conversion or experience. So the time that you came to know Christ, that's your testimony. Or experience, meaning that the time that something happened, Christ related, that's your testimony. Something that was happening, and the Spirit intervened, Christ intervened, something changed. That is your testimony. Now, if you all remember, it was a couple of weeks ago I was up here and I shared testimony about Jonathan. Y'all remember that? I did it in the message. The message title was The Strongest Weapon That You Can Have. And we were talking about prayer. And I mean, even to this day, we still have people who ask me about them. And I also have people who tell me that they were blessed by the story that I shared. Although the story had nothing to do with them, God spoke to them through my testimony, or his testimony, should I say. All right. There's a power in your testimony. Oh, yeah. And I want to go here first because this is the thing that kind of shapes everything for me. Because this is really strong and this is really powerful. And this is in Revelation chapter 12, verse 11. We've talked about this one before, and it says that they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. They overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony, the things that they shared. So the blood of the Lamb was one part of it, right? And the second part was what? The testimony, which we also found out was either how they came to Christ or what Christ had done for them. Those two things that they shared was how they overcame the enemy. It said they did not love their lives so much as to shrink from death. In other words, what that was saying right there was that they didn't care what other folks had to say about it. They were willing to share it. And if that meant that people were going to ridicule them as a result, they didn't care. All right. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But I want to say this, and I want to point that out one more time. It says they overcame him by two things. What was that again? The blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. And the word of their testimony. Talking about testimonies today, each one of you has a testimony. Every one of you. You got at least one. And if you're sitting in here, I bet you got more than one. I bet you got a bunch of them. A story of how you found the Lord, of what he's delivered you from, where he's taken you to, what he has done for you, the things that you have prayed for that he has answered. Each one of you has a story. But here's the thing, other people need to hear that story. Other people need to know about that. But we're in a time today where everything tells us to keep our lives as private as possible. We don't want to share any of that stuff. We don't want to talk about that. Most of the things that we do talk about, they're only half true anyway. Let's look at social media, for example. We've been conditioned to keep our lives private. Most of the stuff you see out there that people are posting, yeah, some of it's real, but a lot of it is fake. And what I mean by fake is that they're not telling you the real story. They're telling you only some of it. We live off of something that is meant to be a standard of perfection, which should not exist. We try to reach goals that we never meant to reach we were never meant to reach in the first place. What's the way you do it, right? So everybody posts photos on social media, at least most people do, right? You'll see one photo, but what's the way I can say this? What if I told you that most people who post that one photo probably has 20 of them of that exact same pose in their photo, in their photo album? So in other words, to get one photo that they post on social media, they took 20. Why did they take 20? Oh, I was kind of half blinking on this one. Oh, my eye was half closed on this one. Oh, you can see the bumps on my face on this one. Oh, well, this one doesn't look right. This is not my good side. It has to be perfect. We can't show anything less than perfection. And then when we finally find that perfect shot, then they have filters. We got to find the right bunny ears to put on it. And we got to find the right nose to put on the thing. But why do we do that? We do that because we want likes. You know, there are many stories out there to talk about how people design their lives now around a like. Just to have somebody give you a thumbs up. We will lie for a like. And here's just an example, and this is a silly example, but I want to show y'all this. So let's put this first picture up. So I found this on the internet. Y'all listen to this. Somebody posted this. My 4-year-old just said, "Daddy, why do people make up things that their children have said for social media? Isn't it just inherently dishonest and indicative of an ability to construct a compelling narrative themselves?" I'll let y'all read it one more time for those who didn't get it. People do this. Now here's another one. So let's see the second one real quick. Second photo, please. All right, so this one right here. Somebody will post this and then they'll put something under there like, "I love my life. Off to the skies again on that next vacation." Y'all know what this is? This is the side of a milk carton that is facing up to the sky, that is taken at just the right angle that makes it look like a plane window. They sitting in their backyard telling people they on their way to the Bahamas. You do that because you want people to like it. Y'all don't believe me, right? Go home and find a bottle of Clorox or a milk carton, because I almost was going to put my own up there. I just didn't have time to do it. And I was going to have my face in this because y'all would see me here. Y'all know I didn't go anywhere. But this is how that works. Go try it. No, actually, don't try it. I'm sorry. Don't do it. Just look at it, right? But we do so much now. We want to have the perfect stuff, but it's all built off of a lie. That's the kind of thing that is in right now. We aren't sharing our own personal stories. Almost like God is not doing anything for us anymore because it's not perfect enough. All right. But people need to hear that because people are living real lives out here. People are going through real things and they need our testimony. The Bible says that we have stories to share and we should. And I'm going to share with you why it says that. But now I was wondering this. Of course, like I said, I've given, a testimony now. And I remember even doing it. All of the different things that were running through my mind when going through it, man, this is really hard. It gets difficult to share it. If y'all were in here when we did it, that was really hard to talk about that. And then you also want to know or wonder if people will fully understand when you share the story what God did. Because I could come in here and say, "Oh, yeah, my son was sick. God healed him." And everybody be like, "Oh, okay, great, cool, But that's not really the depthness of what happened. I'm not fully able or capable to explain what God really did. And because of the fact that it's hard for me to explain that, sometimes it's easier not to do it at all. Do y'all understand what that means? Yeah. God might have saved me from a car accident. Oh, well, the car was coming over in my lane. Oh, okay, great. You didn't get hit. But you don't understand, though. All right now. The car that ran the red light, and you in the right going through the intersection. But it's almost because we can't do it justice that we don't even bother. But people need to hear that story. That's right. It's just easier for us to keep it. Maybe that was just something for God to do with us. This is what we're working on. God's working with us on this. And I remember hearing plainly, it was something, and God just showed this to me, and I'm going to tell you what he said. He said that the test is for you. The testimony is for you and somebody else. And I had to stop. I had to think about that. The test that we went through was for us. The test that you go through is for you. But the testimony of what God did is not only for you, but it's for somebody else as well, too. God's not delivering you to keep it quiet. But how do we know that? You telling me I got to share my story? Yeah, I am. Where you get that from? I got scripture. Y'all should know me better than that. Here's the first one, Psalm 107, verse 2. Y'all know this one. Let the redeemed of the Lord say this. What does redeemed mean? The saved. Now, that don't necessarily mean those who came to know him, those who he has delivered. If he delivered you, say something. Those he redeemed from the hand of the foe. Next verse. Those he gathered from the lands, from the east and the west, from the north and the south, those who were somewhere else. Those who he had to bring in and say, like, look, you in a place that you don't need to be in. Come on over here. If he did that for you, tell somebody what he did. Let's look up that same translation in the Message Bible. It said, all of you who were set free by God, tell the world. Tell how he freed you from oppression. Next part. Then rounded you up from all over the place, from the four winds, from the seven seas. You've got stories to share. Everybody in here was somewhere that didn't start in here. People need to know the story. Simply put, if God has helped you, say it. Share it. Tell somebody. Let's talk about the power in this. So let's tell a little bit of a story here. This is how this works. Mark chapter 5, verse 1. Story here is about Jesus and a demon-possessed man. So let's read through this real quick. So it says, they went across the lake to the region of the Gerasenes. When Jesus got out of the boat, a man with an evil spirit came from the tombs to meet him. Where did he come from? When Jesus got out of the boat, the guy came from where? The tombs to meet him. Who is this guy? Let's talk about this guy for a second. Verse 3. The man lived, where did he live? In the tombs, right? The dude lived like in a graveyard. Y'all know that's already creepy, right? Because people don't even like to go there. This dude lived there. That was his home. And no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain, which means that people knew about this guy and they tried to tie him up. But they couldn't bind him anymore. Even chains that they put on this guy would not hold him. When was the last time you knew people to break chains without Christ's help? Not even with a chain. Next verse. For he had been chained hand and foot, but he tore the chains apart and broke the irons on his feet. He tore the chains apart and broke the irons on his feet. Man, I have so many cringy jokes about being off the chain right now, but I'm going to skip this, all right? And it says, no one was strong enough to subdue him. Nobody. They tied this man up with some of the strongest stuff you could tie him with. He just broke it. Verse 5. Night and day among the tombs and in the hills, he would cry out and cut himself with stones. Next verse. When he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and fell on his knees in front of him. He shouted at the top of his voice, what do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? Swear to me that you won't torture me. Verse 8. For Jesus had said to him, come out of this man, you evil spirit. Then Jesus asked him, what is your name? My name is Legion, he replied, for we have many. Verse 10. For we are many, And he begged Jesus again and again not to send him out of the area. He wasn't afraid of these chains, but he was afraid of Jesus. A large herd of pigs was feeding on the nearby hillside. The demons begged Jesus, send us among the pigs and allow us to go into them. He gave them permission, and the evil spirits came out and went into the pigs. The herd, about 2,000 in number, rushed down the steep bank into the lake and were drowned. We're almost there. We're getting there. Those tending the pigs ran off and reported this in the town and countryside, and the people went out to see what happened. So those tending the pigs, right? So imagine that you have a flock, right? And you go outside one day, and then all of them are like in the water. All of them. And you're trying to figure out what happened. They ran off and reported this. They all just committed a mass suicide. Every one of them. And so they go out, let's see here, and they reported to the people what happened. All right, verse 15. When they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons sitting there, dressed in his right mind, and they were afraid. They were afraid because they knew who this dude was. All right, next verse. Those who had seen it told the people what had happened to the demon-possessed man. And also told about the pigs. All right, look, this wasn't random. The man had a demon in him. He sent him into the pigs, and all the pigs killed themselves. All right, next verse. Then the people begin to plead with Jesus to leave their region. They're scared of this man. They're scared of Jesus now. And as Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. Jesus did not let him, but said, go home to your family and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he's had mercy on you. You see this, right? Go home to your family and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you. So Jesus did all of this. And he says, Jesus, let me follow you. Jesus said, no. Don't come with me. Go tell somebody your story. Go tell somebody what God has done for you. So verse 20 says, the man went away and began to tell in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him. Decapolis, okay, what is that? That's 10. This dude went to 10 cities to go and tell the story of what he used to be and now what he is. This man went on a tour. He didn't just go home and tell his family. He went and told other folks. He went to go and share it because he said, there is a man who could change me when nobody else could. Amen. And all the people were amazed. Back up one verse again. Go home to your family and tell them how much the Lord has done for you. Now, why is that important? Why is that important? He's healed now. He's gone about his business. What'd you say? He said that was his testimony. Because there's power not only in what God did, but there's power also when you're telling somebody about it as well, too.
That's right. That's right.
There's power when you speak on it. Now, there are benefits to telling your story. I got 3 of them. This won't take long. I'm going to give you 3 benefits to telling your story. Here's the first one right here. Your testimony gives God glory. Your testimony gives God glory. Jesus told the man who had been free from the demons to go and tell somebody. And tell what the Lord has done for you. Tell what God did. In telling that story, God was getting the glory based off of that. When you find out somebody can do something like that, who is this man? Let me meet him. Psalm chapter 105 verse 1 says this, give thanks to the Lord, call on his name, make known among the nations what he has done. Now, give thanks to the Lord, call on his name, make known among the nations what he has done. So what God has done, tell people what God has done. This is a specific thing for you to tell somebody about the goodness of God, not because you heard it from somebody else, but because you've seen it, because of the things that you know that he has done. To tell somebody about it. God gets the glory when we tell others of his great works. Psalm chapter 71 verse 15 says, my mouth will tell of your righteousness. My mouth will speak on it. Of your salvation all the day long, though I know not its measure. What it's saying here is that I will tell how great you are and the great things you've done, even though I don't even know half of the things you have done for me. I can't even keep up with the things you have done for me, but the things I can keep up with, I'm going to share that. And I'm going to talk about it. I don't know. I mean, even right now, God is delivering us from stuff right now. We have no idea what it is. At this exact moment, stuff that we didn't even know to pray for, God's already changing that. As we continue to tell people of testimonies we didn't even know we had, that is giving God the glory. So that was the first one. Your testimony gives God glory. Here's the second one. Your testimony gives you and others confidence. This is why it's important to tell it. It gives you confidence. Another story here. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 32. We talked about this with our teenagers a couple weeks ago, so they're a little bit familiar with what I'm about to do. But I'm only going to be here just for a second. David said to Saul, let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him. Now, we're talking about Goliath here, right? All right, so David is in front of Saul, And David says, like, look, okay, y'all been out here. This has been happening for all of these days, for a month and a half or so. He's coming out here every single day. He's got all of this stuff to say. Y'all don't want to fight him. I'll go take care of it. Next verse, please. Saul replied to him, you are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You are only a boy. And he's been fighting a men from his youth. Now, usually they said on average, now it said here in scripture that Goliath was over 9 feet tall. And we talked about that in the team message that day as well, too, because you think about 9 feet tall, well, you know, that can't be possible. Well, you know, the Guinness Book of World Records has somebody around 8 right now. And that's from the time they started recording it, 8 feet. You know, there's a guy that's in the NBA right now, and I didn't write these down, so please don't hold me to these. But, I mean, you know, they have multiple people who are over 7 feet. But if I remember correctly, I think the tallest person that we have on record, I believe, is like 7 feet, 11 inches. And there may be some other people, and that dude actually might still be alive. But anyway, let me just say it like this, it's possible. And, you know, usually Hebrew boys, I mean, they like around 5 feet. So it almost takes 2 of David to even get as high as what Goliath was. And so I was like, look, you know, I'm not trying to get you to go fight him, because if he kills you, we got to be their servants. You're not able to go out and do this. You only a boy. He's been fighting men from his youth. Next verse. David said to Saul, your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. He said, let me tell you a story. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from his mouth. Then when it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and I killed it. A lion or a bear. Either one of them. They both have done it. Next verse. Your servant has killed both the lion and a bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who delivered me, and I always love this verse. The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. Saul said to David, go and the Lord be with you. Okay, well, what does that have to do with this right here? See, David gave a testimony. Why is it that you feel like you can fight him? David said, let me tell you what the God has done for me already. It doesn't make a difference what this thing looks like. Because before I had a lion come up to try to take something from me, I went after it. And when it turned on me, I killed it. But then another time, I had a bear come up on me. And then when the bear turned on me, I killed it too. But you know what? Because God delivered me before, I now have confidence to know that he will deliver me again. His testimony gave him confidence. And apparently gave it to Saul too, because Saul said, go and may that Lord be with you. He let him do it. It gives others confidence to hear of your story. So here was one that was shared with me, again, about Jonathan's testimony. Y'all remember I told you he was in the hospital, and, you know, he was, they were running around the idea of bacterial meningitis that he was dealing with. You know, he was extremely sensitive to touch. I remember all of that, right? So here's what I found out. Whitney shared this with me. After that message was given, there was another woman who was in the hospital with similar symptoms. They didn't know what was going on with her. Similar things were happening to her. She told Whitney, she said when she heard the testimony of what Jonathan did for her, that gave her the confidence to let her know that she was going to make it. She heard it while she was in the hospital. If God did it for him, then he can do it for me. And guess what? He did. He did. And what it makes me think is what if I didn't share the testimony? There's power in that. Couple points here if you want to write them down. When you hear what God has done for others, you realize he can do the same thing for you. When you hear that God has delivered somebody else, he can do it for you. When you hear of God healing others, know when you get sick, he can heal you as well. God's not in the business of healing some people and not others. That's not how he works. He calls all of us his people. When you hear of God doing miracles in other people's lives, when you need a miracle, he can do that as well too. They talk about God is in the miracle working business, but it's not just for a select group of people. The more and more we share about what God is doing for us, it gives other people confidence to know that he can do it for me too.
That's right.
It just might not be your time yet. But if we never talk about it, then it seems like God is never doing anything. Your testimony helps bring people closer to God. When you share your story and they see what God is doing through you, it can encourage them to know that their situation won't last much longer.
All right.
God changes things. Now, so that was number one and number two. Here's number three. You share your story because this is your defense to your haters. Y'all think about that for a minute. It's your defense. 1 Peter chapter 3 says, verse 15. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15. It says, but in your heart set apart Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. You know, we're in a place now where it seems like everybody want to come at you just because of the fact you said you believe. Oh, so you mean to tell me you believe that somebody spoke the world into existence? You mean to tell me that animals came 2 by 2 and got on the ark and didn't eat each other? You mean to tell me that there was a man that walked on water and that there was a flood that lasted all of this time? 3 men got into a furnace while it was burning. A 4th one showed up and then the 3 came out and now a burn on them. Y'all know they've been trying to disprove Christ since he was walking on this earth, right? And you can argue with them all day. But you know what they can't discredit? No one can tell you what God did for you. Think about it. No one can tell you what God did for you. We can argue stuff till we blue in the face until you start talking about my story. You can't argue my story. Let's go back to this demon-possessed man again and talk about that. So that's back in Mark 5. We've already read through it, so let's break this down a little bit more. The man lived in the tombs, and nobody could bind him anymore. Verse 3, please. Yes, that's right. Not even with a chain, for he had often been chained hand and foot. But he tore the chains apart and broke the irons on his feet. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and in the hills, he would cry and cut himself with stones. All right, so back up to 4 real quick. He had often been chained hand and foot. Who's chaining this man up? People, right? Others who were trying to subdue this person, right? So the fact that he was chained, the dude wasn't chaining himself. So the fact that somebody was chaining him up means that other people knew about him. Y'all see where I got that from, right? Oh, don't go down into the tombs, that crazy man down there. We didn't try to chain him up. He done broke those chains. Don't go down there. You hear this dude at night crying and screaming and cutting himself with stones. Y'all know how people gossip, right? Now, let's see here. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Well, how do they know that? Because people tried to. So people know about the crazy man over by the tombs. You follow me, right? Yes. All right, next verse. Night and day among the tombs and the hills, he would cut himself, with stones. All right. Now, verse 14. Let's skip a little bit because we already know Jesus came and healed him. So let's go to 14. Those tending the pigs ran off and reported this in the town and the countryside. And the people went out to see what had happened. Now, people being nosy. They want to know what happened. All of them died? Must be UFOs over there. Let's go see what's going on. Let's go find out what's happening. There must be people crazy over there. What's happening? And they go out there and look. Verse 15. When they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons sitting there dressed in his right mind, and they were afraid. Why were they afraid? If you walk up to somebody and you see them sitting there dressing in their right mind, clothed and all of that, just another person, right? Why were they afraid? Because he was a man. They knew who this dude was. They knew who he was. This man sitting out here. They knew this man's past. And now they've seen that God has delivered him. Look at that.
That's good.
This man ain't worn clothes in ages. He's sitting there. He's not cutting himself anymore. What has God done? Nobody could tell this man what God hadn't done for him.
That's right.
Now let me make this personal. You know, nobody expected that man would ever come out of whatever was going on with him. But now they got to look at him. We each got a story too, and you know, there's a lot of people didn't think you would come out of some of the stuff that you came out of either.
All right.
They might have called you crazy. Something was wrong with you. But now they have to sit here and look at you dressed in your right mind. Got all together. And it causes them to be afraid, because if God changed you, then there must be a God. And they can't deny who this demon-possessed man used to be. When he come up and tell you what Christ did to him, who gonna argue that? Oh, it was just fake news. You weren't sick for real. People cannot argue your story. No one can question the things that you have seen God do in your life. This is the thing for me. When we were in the hospital, and I said this that day, nobody, you can argue whatever it is you want to believe, but you can't tell me what I can and cannot believe, because I know what I saw. I was there. You can't argue that. God has done things in your life, and you were there. You saw it firsthand. They can't come and argue that. People always want to tell you what it is you're supposed to do, or what's right and what's wrong and all of that. There was a song this morning I heard as we were getting ready to come here this morning. I'm going to read some of the lyrics to it because it was so fitting for this. It says, I've come to pour my praise on him with oil from Mary's alabaster box. Don't be angry if I wash his feet with my tears and dry them with my hair. Now listen to this. You weren't there. You were not there the night he found me. And you didn't feel what I felt when he wrapped his loving arms around me. And you don't know the cost of the oil in my alabaster box. You don't know my story is what it's saying. You don't know it. So finally, as we get here towards the end, this is an important point to make too. When you withhold your story, you are hiding truth that other people need. Remember, most of everything today is a lie, right? People come up and ask you, oh, how's everything going? Oh, I'm blessed and highly favored. Everything is so wonderful. God is doing everything. And as soon as you get in the car, you're crying. Because life is happening. We're living based on a lie. But when you withhold your story, you are hiding truth that other people need. Psalm chapter 40, verse 10 says this, I do not hide your righteousness in my heart. I don't do it. I speak of your faithfulness and your salvation. I do not conceal your love and your truth from the great assembly. I do not conceal your love and your what? Truth. I don't hide your righteousness, the things that you have done for me in my heart. Who you are. I speak of your faithfulness and your salvation, your ability to save and deliver and change. I talk about it. I don't conceal your love and your truth from the great assembly. I tell other people of how good you are. So here's the part right here as we get to the end. People need to know your story. People need to know your story. Can you imagine how many people, the idea is we may not think that much of it. Somebody else already, told their story about being healed in the hospital, so why I got to share mine? No, somebody said it because it's your story. That's right. That's exactly right. And your story is unique. But here's the way life works. Your story was given to you Not just for you to be saved from it and go on about your business.
All right.
It was to help somebody else, because there is somebody else that you don't know about who needs to know that story.
All right.
I did not know that there was somebody in the hospital at the moment that they were listening to the message.
All right.
I didn't know that. I just knew I was supposed to tell it. And out of all the people who heard it, if it changed something in her, then I did my job.
All right now.
I might not even know all the people who heard it, whose lives were changed from hearing about what happened with my son. But you know what? I'm going to tell people. Because I know what God did. God has done so much for us. Why do we conceal it? Why do we hold it? Well, we don't know. We don't want people to know what we used to do and who we used to be. Oh, so you prefer to keep that a secret? You want to hide that in your heart, as opposed to the type of things that God can do. If you used to be on drugs, there might be somebody in here right now who is dealing with that that needs to know that God can deliver somebody from that. But if nobody ever talks about it, it's almost like, well, you know, this might be the thing I'm just going to have to hold on to till I die and go on to heaven. That's not the way it was designed to be. We're to help one another. The things that God has brought us through. I said it again, and I have a point here. God didn't open doors and deliver you for you to keep it a secret. He didn't go through all of that to not give us the ability to share it. Finally, the last one, and I said this before, if God has helped you, share it, say it, share it, and tell somebody. My 3 points as the last review. 3 benefits to telling your story. Your testimony gives God glory. Second one is your testimony gives you and others confidence. When you go back and you see all the different things that God has done, remember how they say before, right? When you look back at the things that God has brought you through, your testimony of what you have made it through gives you confidence to go through the new thing. That's all David was saying. The mere fact that God brought me through those things before means that he will do it again. The test might look different, but I can make it because God has given, he got a proven track record that has never failed me yet. That's going to help me move forward. Number 3, finally, is that your testimony is a defense to your haters, because people will come for you and ask you these questions and want to try and trip you up. And if you want to work on that and you want to, debate with them, that's perfectly fine if you want to do it. But I'm telling you, there's a place where they got to stop. And that's when it comes to your story.
All right.
They weren't with you when God changed you. They weren't with you when God answered the one thing that you were praying about. They weren't with you when the car moved out the way.
All right. Yeah.
They weren't with you when all the other stuff was happening. Yet God made a way for you.
All right.
They weren't there. Your story is necessary. It is necessary. We don't want to talk about it, but God told us to talk about it. God told us to share it. All right, we're going to stop right there.